It is 6 o'clock and time for the regularly scheduled March 18th meeting of Findlay Council. My name is Grant Russell. I am at-large councilman and president pro tem. The mayor is out of town, so Mr. Harrington, council president, has moved over to be acting mayor, which brings me to this side of this side and to run the meeting in replacement of John. With that, we will start with roll call.
Mr. Ballman?
Here.
Mr. DeArmond?
Here.
Ms. Frischi?
Here.
Mr. Greeno?
Here.
Mr. Hellman? Mr. Niemeyer?
Here.
Mr. Palmer?
Here.
Mr. Russell?
Here.
Ms. Warnicki?
Here.
And Mr. Wopser?
Present.
Mr. Hellman has informed us that he would be absent from tonight's meeting. Would take a motion from Mr. Ballman, second from Mr. DeArmond to excuse. Dennis, all in favor of excusing him, please say aye.
Aye.
And Dennis is excused. Please rise for the Pledge of Allegiance and a moment of silence.
Allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
We have two meeting minutes to be approved, the March 4th regular session of City Council meeting and the March 4th public hearing meeting minutes. Motion to approve, Mr. Palmer. Second, Mr. Wopser. Any changes or additions to them? Seeing as though they're not, all in favor of accepting them as distributed, please say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same sign, and they are accepted. Mr. Wopser, I know we have some add-on letters and ordinances. Could you
I'd like to
put it
make
into
a
motion?
I'd like to make a motion to add the following 4 items to our agenda this evening. The first is a letter from Safety Service Director Martin concerning insurance payment for a vehicle accident that would go to reports of municipal officers. Number 2 is a letter from City Engineer Kalb concerning the Western Sandusky project that goes into reports of municipal officers. Number 3 is legislation ordinance 025-33, which is the the legislation that goes with number 1, replacement of the sewer maintenance department vehicle because of the accident, which I'm sure we'll get a good story about that, Rob. And number 4, ordinance 2025-34, which is the legislation to go with the letter stated in number 2. That's a motion to add those to our agenda.
Second, Mr. Palmer. Questions or comments? All in favor of the additions to the agenda, please say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same sign, and the agenda has been amended. We're on to proclamations, and we have one proclamation. It's a good one. It's a special one for, I know, at least one councilman here and probably a lot more. And I am honored to read this proclamation in the absence of Mayor Murn. We're talking today, this proclamation is concerning World Down Syndrome Day. A proclamation. Whereas Down syndrome is a genetic variation that occurs in approximately 6,000 births annually in the United States due to an extra full or partial copy of the 21st chromosome. And whereas this natural chromosomal arrangement is one of the most common anomalies. And whereas Down syndrome empowers individuals with unique assets to enrich our community's educational, occupational, recreational, and social fabric. And whereas mismatched socks have become an informal symbol to acknowledge Down syndrome due to the fact that at the karyotype level, chromosomes resemble socks. And whereas, as we celebrate World Down Syndrome Day, we honor the valuable contributions of individuals with Down syndrome that they make, promoting a culture of inclusivity, acceptance, and optimism. And whereas World Down Syndrome Day is celebrated annually on March 21, which symbolizes the third copy of the 21st chromosome and inspires us to celebrate diversity and individuality. And whereas March 21st, 2025 marks the 14th global celebration of World Down Syndrome Day. Now, therefore, Christina M. Mern, Mayor of the City of Findlay, Ohio, do hereby proclaim March 21st, 2025 as World Down Syndrome Day in Findlay, Ohio, and encourages everyone to rock your socks by wearing mismatched socks to acknowledge and embrace the beauty of our individual differences. Mr. Guarino, do we have a motion to accept this proclamation? Do we have a second? I see Mr. DeArmond, Mr. Ballman, Mr. Palmer. Anyone else? Mr. Wobser, Ms. Warnicki, Ms. Frischi, Mr. Niemeyer. Thank you, one and all. We have a motion and a second. Discussion? I'll accept a roll call vote, please.
Mr. Ballman,
Aye.
Mr. DeArmond,
Aye.
Ms. Frischi, Mr. Greeno,
Aye.
Mr. Hellman, Mr. Niemeyer,
Aye.
Mr. Palmer,
Aye.
Mr. Russell,
Aye.
Ms. Warnicki, and Mr. Wobser.
Aye.
And now if we could have Oliver and Oliver's mom and dad come down to the front so we can give you this proclamation. How you doing, Oliver? Oliver, I gotta tell you something. I'm
All
wearing two
right.
different socks today.
All right.
Can I give you this? Sit here and join us. Who's taking pictures? Becky, come on up. Thank you so much.
All right. Good job, Grant.
Mr. Guarino, do you have any additional comments?
Yes, I do. As you can tell, that's a pretty little special boy in my eyes. And you just heard a proclamation read into the council minutes acknowledging March 21st as World Down Syndrome Day. As we've all heard, 321 represents the third or extra 21st chromosome. I'd like to read an illustration that strikes near to my heart in regard to Down syndrome. This child may not be perfect in the eyes of earthly man, but God designed this child according to his plan. Perhaps to serve as inspiration to those who have it all, to recognize their limitations and comparisons are small. The almond-shaped eyes of those born with Down syndrome embrace life to the fullest, and the sights and the sounds, aware of the things most people are not, with childlike innocence that most adults have forgot. God sent these angels to teach all of us here that these unsung heroes have lessons to share for all of us. I fortunately am blessed with one of these earth angels in my grandson, Ollie. It's been a true miracle to watch him grow through all of life's challenges with a smile on his face, and I want him to know that his papi loves him. Thank you. Thank you all.
Thank you, Randy, and for
Thank
Oliver
you.
and your family and your family. You don't have to stay around for the rest of the meeting. If you don't want to, you're more than welcome to, but thank you so much for coming in tonight. Very much appreciate it. We have no recognition or retirements, no petitions. Oral communications will be done in line. We have a written communication.
An email from Haiti Sadler regarding request for radiation testing.
Questions or comments? Letter be filed. Reports of municipal officers and municipal departments.
I don't know if I need to state this. I just put the liquor permit for Ralph's Appliance, Inc., doing business as Ralph's Joy of Living, just because it's on hold.
I had a conversation with folks from Ralph's Joy of Living in Tiffin today. They informed me that they had, in essence, 2 liquor permits that were in that they were working on. One was a transfer, and then the one that is in front of us, which is a new liquor permit. Per their statement, the transfer went through, and this new one is now has been withdrawn by them at the state. I don't know what we want to do with this. I mean, Rob, I would assume we could just skip it and ask that it be removed from the agenda.
Correct. That's different than what we talked about today because they withdrew it.
To my understanding, that's what they told me, and I have the voicemail to prove it. So,
Enough.
so if we had to have a motion to remove this from the agenda, Mr. Palmer,
I'll-
second, Mr.
Mr. Russell, I was going to say move that no objection be filed since they currently have liquor permits license anyways.
Oh, I'm sorry. Excuse me.
Move that no objection be filed.
Okay. Second to that by Mr. Niemeyer. Questions or comments? I think, from my view, it doesn't hurt if we have no objection and just
Correct.
run it per normal.
Right.
Okay. So we have a motion and a second. All in favor that, or any more discussion?
Error.
All in favor of that no objection be filed, please say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same sign. No objection will be filed. Thank you, Mr. Palmer.
Findlay Police Departmental Activities Report for February 2025.
Questions or comments? Reports be filed.
Findlay Fire Department Activities Report for February 2025.
Discussion? Reports be filed.
City Income Tax Monthly Collections Report for February 2025.
Discussion? Mr. Stasiak?
Yes, thank you. I just want to add, I had a discussion with Mary Price, our income tax administrator, and had some significant concern about the reduction in withholding. Withholding is the lion's share of your income tax receipts. And comparing year to year, sometimes you see the amount off a significant number, a couple $100,000, due to timing of payroll on 3 paycheck months and things like that. That is not the case here. Last year, payroll was significantly higher in the first quarter. It was partially significantly higher due to large bonuses that were issued throughout the community. So this variance, this reduction, is a real reduction from last year to this year in the withholding component, which is significantly different and traditionally much more stable than your business net profits tax component.
And Jim, just for clarification, the fact that these are withholders, this has nothing to do with tax day coming up in April, correct?
Yeah, that's correct. And the average person doesn't probably realize it because the typical person doesn't get stock options and whatnot and bonuses like this. But when you exercise those options or when those bonuses come through and when they're paid out, they do flow right to your paycheck. And so you have to pay withholding and city income tax on them. So we did see a real reduction here.
Other discussion? Reports be filed.
Findlay Municipal Court Activities Report for February 2025.
Discussion? Reports be filed.
City Planning Commission agenda for March 13th, 2025, as well as the staff report for March 13th, 2025, and the minutes of February 20th, 2025.
Discussion? Ms. Frishy?
Just one thing for the record, I did have a citizen call me today regarding the residential, commercial mixed use on Center. They're not against it, just for the record, their concern is if that alley will start getting a lot of traffic and if it'll back up and delay them having access to their property. I explained to him, and he talked over to regional planning, told him the same thing, it's a conditional use. I told him if he has questions at any time or concerns, that we would address them then, but I promised him I would put that on the record.
Other discussion? Agenda, staff report, and minutes be filed.
Summary financial reports as of February 28th, 2025.
Discussion, Mr. Stasiak.
Thank you. A couple of you received emails from me after you emailed me, and I'd like to point a couple things out. I made a change to this report for you. If you go to, I believe it's the last page on the report, cash investments as of February 28th, 2025. Due to the discussion at the last council meeting, I thought it would be prudent to add the third column there on your cash investments as of February 28th. The third column says YTM, that's yield to maturity. Since there's a significant misunderstanding with regard to how our money receives return, let's use that word for the moment, since that was the word that finally came out at the last meeting, I thought it would be great to share that if you look at the total investment portfolio here, total cash investments, $96.5 million. Of that $96.5 million, all of it, except $22.5 million, is receiving well in excess of 4 and typically closer to 5% return. So good, solid, strong returns on your money. Now, there was a couple offhand comments at the last meeting. One in particular was, 2% on a savings account, I can get more than that on mine. We can't take comments like that, whether they're tongue-in-cheek or not. They lead to a bad thought. You have to have money to pay your bills. And just like your checking account in your personal life, most banks don't pay significant interest on your checking account. They do on your money market account and whatnot. But I have to have money to pay the bills. How much is your budget annually? It's well in excess of $100 million, closer to 120, including transfers, than 100. So that's $10 million a month. What is our reserve policy? Our reserve policy is 3 months. So that's traditionally, that would be $30 million. Well, here what I've been able to do through monitoring our cash system, our cash flow, our cash balances, where we're at. I'm not talking about unappropriated balances. I'm talking about real money here. We were able, one, to get a very favorable rate from Fifth Third Bank at 2% on that DDA money, that demand deposit account, which is phenomenal. And two, every month, I don't pay the same amount of money out. 1 month I might pay out $15 million. 1 month I might pay out $5 million. We don't have true monthly cash flow projections from the administration. So there's a little bit of mathematical analysis, there's a little bit of guesswork, because I have to have the money in place to pay your bills. But to be able to do that by keeping our demand deposit account balances at basically 16%, in this case it's 23% overall of the entire portfolio. So 77% of your investment portfolio is making closer to 5% than 4%. Well in excess of 4%, which is phenomenal. And again, I had mentioned last meeting that you can't go into the finance system and say, how much interest did we make, and understand that you're getting these types of yields on your investments, because every single one of these investments, with rare exception, was bought at a discount. In other words, if it was $1 million, I might have only spent, as in the second treasury there, or the third treasury, $951,000 for that. So the coupon on that particular one is 5.1, and so the yield is 5.1. So that's a rare example of where they match. You'd go to the very next one, the coupon's only 4.6, but our yield is 4.8. We're getting more of a yield because, again, we're buying at discounts. And that's happening because of the best practices bid policy that I have put in place, where we put things out to bid, we get a number of brokers that bid on them, and we take the lowest and best bid, resulting in the highest yield to maturity, which gives us the greatest return on investment. Now, if that's not enough information for some of your group, I had a great conversation with Councilman Wobser about this. Actually, I had 2 conversations with him. And the idea was, we're happy, and Mr. Wobser is happy through the Appropriations Committee to host a meeting where I could come in and give you guys the dirty details of how this works, why we're using best practices, the number of people that are involved, and how it works. Because again, I know a lot of misinformation is out there. I know a lot of presumptions were made. And then later in your packet, I thought Mr. Feichner and I had a great conversation, and he opined, and I thought he did very well at that. I also included in the packet, after his inclusion of 135, ORC 135, I included our investment policy, which has been in place for a number of years, has been a solid policy, and it was written and developed by the administrators at the time, which was Janet Wobser, Steve Welton, and David Hackenberg, the law director at the time. So we have a valid legal investment policy, which we follow. We have a valid legal proper process. We have a best practice process, and over 77% of your investments are obtaining greater than 4% interest. And again, if that's not enough information to tide you over until we have a bigger, longer meeting on it, happy to answer other questions in an appropriations setting.
Other discussion, Mr. DeArmond.
Well, thanks I appreciate that detail, Jim, really. I mean, that's the first time we've ever heard this is new information, so thank you. I was gonna put a motion out to request a presentation, but I'll hold back. If you're gonna do that with appropriations, I look forward to the presentation, so.
You would need to call it, Dan. You need to ask for that, is what Auditor Stasiak, if you want that presentation,
Okay.
you need to request it.
All right, then I'll make a motion.
Let's do this in
or-
new business. Thank you.
All right.
Other discussion. Thank you. Reports be filed.
Letter from Director of Law Feigner regarding city investment matter.
Discussion. Letter be filed.
Letter from City Auditor Stashak. Well, it's actually the investment policy.
Discussion. Letter be filed.
Letter from Hancock Regional Planning Commission Grant Administrator Peninsky regarding Miracle Field Fitness Park, project number 319-50600, appropriation of funds.
Discussion. Letter be filed.
A letter from City Engineer Kalb regarding first capital improvement appropriation of 2025.
Discussion. Letter be filed.
Board of Zoning Appeals minutes for December 12th, 2024 and February 13th, 2025.
Discussion. Minutes be filed. Add-ons.
Add-on letter from Service Safety Director Martin regarding an insurance payment for replacement of a sewer maintenance department vehicle from an accident.
Discussion. Mr. Martin. Didn't know you were discussing,
I
did you?
didn't know I raised my hand. But happy to add a little color here. So we did have a vehicle that was in an incident, and it was totaled due to the inability to replace the airbags in it. It was a 13-year-old vehicle, so we ended up getting the insurance money for it, which was the $27,000 and change, to get that vehicle back up to what we need, which is a 1-ton with a dump feature on the bed. We need the additional dollars to offset that cost of $71,000 for the replacement. So that's what this letter's identifying, the transfer of the insurance dollars as well as the balance to cover the purchase of a new vehicle.
Other discussion. Ms. Frishy.
Where was this in the capital plan? I mean, just for that 1 ton that we just lost, that was 13. Was it up for this year, next year?
No, it was not.
Okay.
At the time of development of the capital plan, I was not sure of what the insurance payment was, if it was going to cover all of it or anything like that, so I didn't include it in there and having a truck. So that's why it wasn't in the capital. As soon as we got that, I wish it was in there because it was the additional funds, but it's just bad timing with all of
I
it.
just meant where was it in rotation with our regular capital planning? and it wasn't anywhere
It,
in
no,
the near future.
No, it was, I mean, it was a 13 years old, but it was still a daily use. We didn't really have any problems until the accident type situation.
Mr. Wobser?
Rob, so this isn't one of our two large dump trucks that we use to run sludge back and forth to the landfill, correct? Obviously, the dollar value. So, but we need the dump feature on this 1 ton. What do we use? What are we using that for? Sorry,
I can answer
Jeremy.
kind of the field side of it.
Sorry.
So they use this pretty much in their daily operations for when they have any kind of sewer repairs or anything like that.
Okay.
They don't really need the bigger tandem axles or anything like that. The 1 tons will fit what that is. I believe, and I think I got the number we got the number from sewer, but I mean, the price has went up on that. The original truck was 33,000, and now you can see it's 71. It's just 13 years of inflation happens with it, but it's their daily use that they use. It's easier to get around on sewer repairs type thing.
Thank you.
Other discussion? Letter be filed.
Letter from City Engineer Kalb, add-on letter for Han Western and Sandusky NS PID 100233, project number 2285270.
Discussion. Mr. Martin, would you care to add any detail to this? I know I read this letter really quickly and hope that you would fill in some blanks.
I will.
Oh, Mr. Martin or Cal?
All right, so Sandusky Western, we sent this out, to give a long story short, we sent this out to bid twice last year. Did not receive any bids on it. It is a very difficult intersection working with the railroad and stuff like that. In the meantime, we have been working within our departments, the traffic department, street department, to get the poles purchased or designed and purchased for this project. We've been, in the meantime, working with Rail Commission. We had 629 funds that come from the Department of Development, and then this is also, in the long run, an ODOT project as well. I wanted to make sure that the grant funds from 629 can be used to purchase the equipment and for us to install the equipment, and we get reimbursed for that. So that's kind of what the holdup was on that. I got verification from them late last week that we could do that, so that's why I added that on right now. We have a match with it, but what we are doing with this is pretty much we're doing a double set of signals. So there will be a set of signals at the intersection themselves, and then we're working with the railroad to have predemption. When a train's at a certain spot, it will trigger all of the signals and it'll clear out the main intersection, and then it'll stop everyone back behind the tracks. So that way no one is trapped in between there. Along with that too, we are also going to be adding in a left turn lane for westbound Sandusky traffic. Within that, we got to widen the road out 2 foot, but we can fit that in there. But with that, we've been working with Railroad trying to get the redemption done, get all their schedule and stuff like that. But once we're done with this, it will be pretty much a double set that will make sure that area is cleared out and no one can get trapped within those 2 tracks when a train is coming. And the timing and all that has been set by, we've worked all that out with the railroad to ensure that all the signals working at time. So the money that I have appropriated is the 629 funds from the DOD, and then also our match funds to do that. So this will cover us for the construction of this, so we can do it in-house.
Ms. Frishy?
But not the widening or anything. This is just
Yeah,
simply
sorry, the whole project.
The whole thing
That's
is
all
in
part of
that.
the project,
Okay.
correct.
Mr. Niemeyer?
Is there, Jeremy, this has been going on for what, 4 or 5 years with the railroad?
At least. It's probably more. I think it's starting
And back, we
15.
talked about, excuse me, a traffic light. Is that still in the works?
Yeah, so there will be a traffic signal at the intersection itself. So when there's no trains, it'll be treated as a traffic signal. And then when there is a train coming miles away, redemption will start, and it will pretty much throw reds to the outside of the tracks. So that will be red. No one can come in to the track zone, but the main intersection will have enough time that it can clear everyone out there. So it'll go green in certain sequence to clear everyone out. Then it's pretty much all red within that, to make sure no one can get trapped within there.
Mr. Wobser?
Hey, Jeremy, so is there 3 other than exterior lights that are on the other side of the tracks?
Yeah, so there will be one on the west side of the tracks on Sandusky,
Yeah.
one on the north side of the tracks of Western, and then 4 signals pretty much at the immediate crossing or at the intersection itself. So we'll have six signals within that area.
Expensive.
Jeremy, what's the timing on needing passage of this ordinance?
Right now, polls are 6 to 8 months out before we can get them. I mean, I would like to get them ordered sooner or later, so that way I can keep on the project.
But so this could be a first meeting in April consideration.
We can go 2 readings. I'd be fine with 2 readings on that. If we can go first meeting in April, that's only 2 weeks. But we got the poll design and stuff, so as soon as we get the money, we'll get the purchase orders, get them purchased.
Other discussion? Letter be filed. Committee reports.
The Appropriations Committee, to whom was referred a request to discuss the 2025 capital plan, we recommend to accept the proposed capital improvement plan.
Mr. Palmer?
Move to accept the committee report.
Second, Mr. Greeno. Discussion. All in favor of accepting the committee report, please say aye.
Aye.
Those opposed, same sign. Committee report is accepted.
The Planning and Zoning Committee, to whom was referred a request to discuss the following zoning code items: parking, donation collection boxes, conditional uses such as gas stations, car washes, oil change, dollar stores. We recommend to continue discussions on agenda items at the next Planning and Zoning Committee meeting and are researching the parking issue. No vote required.
Mr. Baumann.
Motion to approve?
Second, Mr. Palmer. Discussion. Ms. Frishy.
For the record, I watched that 17-minute one-man meeting, but what kind of surprised me was the agenda items, in particular, even the dollar stores. You know, we had moratorium for that and games of skill. We separated it out past one and said we weren't going to do anything about dollar stores. And then all of a sudden, the mayor is bringing these back to committee, and I guess it's a little concerning for me when council already had a vote. So that's all I wanted.
Other discussion. All those in favor of accepting the committee report, please say aye.
Aye.
Those opposed, same sign. Committee report is accepted. Legislation. Resolutions.
Third reading for Resolution 10, 2025, a resolution stating what services the City of Findlay, Ohio will provide to the territory proposed to be annexed to the City of Findlay, Ohio, situated in Liberty Township, County of Hancock, State of Ohio, and being part of the northeast quarter of Section 36, Township 1 North, Range 10 East, a tract of land consisting of 9.166 acres of land, more or less, hereinafter referred to as the Greenbrier Holdings Ltd. and Mauer Rentals LLC, South Main Street, annexation.
Mr. Palmer.
Move to adopt ordinance number 10-2025.
Resolution.
Oh, sorry. Adopt resolution number 10-2025.
Thank you. Second, Mr. Greeno. Discussion. Hearing as there is none, all those in favor of adoption of the resolution, please say aye after your name is called. Those opposed, nay.
Mr. Ballman?
Aye.
Mr. DeArmond?
Aye.
Ms. Frishy? Mr. Greeno?
Aye.
Mr. Niemeyer?
Aye.
Mr. Palmer?
Aye.
Mr. Russell?
Aye.
Ms. Warnicki? And Mr. Wobser?
Aye.
The resolution is adopted.
Third reading for ordinance 2025-22. An ordinance authorizing the mayor to execute the attached transfer agreement as it pertains to the transfer of real estate owned by the Board of Hancock County Commissioners to the City of Findlay and accepting the related deed for same, said real estate being located east of North Main Street, west of Jefferson Street, north of Clinton Court, and south of Center Street.
Mr. Palmer.
Move to adopt ordinance number 2025-22.
Second, Mr. Ballman. Discussion. Ms. Frishy.
You know, council had said we were not going to be transferring any properties until the benching was complete. I'm still not clear on what the sudden rush is on that, and I feel like it should still wait until we have everything taken care of.
Other discussion? Mr. Stasiak?
I'm guessing that this set of ordinances should be taken as companion ordinances, this one and the next. That being said, there were two issues that I have not been given any information on with regard to the pair, or regarded particularly to the second ordinance, but this one it applies to, with regard to what happened to the money we were supposed to collect on the parking lots, the $12,500 a year since 2021 or 22 when it was stopped being collected, with no explanation and no ordinance, and I've not been getting any information to date on that, and that needs resolved so that we can determine if it was even legal to stop collecting it and if it's due from the county, and that should be part of this transaction if it is. The second thing is there's an outstanding first right of refusal that's actually in the deed. In the deed, the Kirk family, they have a right to buy our lot, first right, for $13,500. And none of you would be able to buy a property out in the open market without proper notice being given to the holder of a first right on a property you would buy. So I'm wondering what the status of those two items are, and I've been given no information about that, and the administration was given plenty of notice to get those items resolved.
Other discussion? Mr. Finer?
Thank you. Jim, I did some research with Phil Johnson on this lot 236 as far as the right of first refusal. And the Kirk Realty Company executed in 1986 a certificate of dissolution dissolving the company. There was no assignment rights or anything else to be found or recorded at the recorder's office. In that regard, it would be clear that that is long dissipated. There was also in the deed a 60-day requirement that if it wasn't going to be used for public parking, the city needed to communicate that to the Kirk Realty Company so they could exercise that right of first refusal if they wanted to do so. My understanding now is that is over 10 years old, to which there haven't been meters at that lot. I guess what I'm getting at in simple terms is I don't see an issue with the right of first refusal anymore. The company hasn't been in existence. There's no one exercise those rights that we can find. So I think we're okay on the right of first refusal. I can't speak as to the collection of parking ticket stuff.
Ms. Frischie?
I guess since we jumped over to that ordinance, since they do go together, just to share with council, I did email with Rob a little bit because I had a couple concerns with the document where it said we will maintain 20 parking spaces, which the word maintain concerns me because if we are transferring that property over, I really have no interest in putting any asphalt down or putting any maintenance into those 20 spaces. And then my bigger concern, which we still don't have an answer to, is when the first reading was given on this, the mayor expressed that our parking department is going to continue to ticket and maintain that lot. And I'm not quite sure how we do that when we don't own it, because we don't do that on private property. And I think we need to have that understanding as well. And then if that income comes to us or if it goes to the county since they owned it, how that works.
Mr. Finer?
On the parking enforcement issue, I did seek a statement from Philip Johnson, the county prosecutor working on these kind of issues. He did issue me a statement that it is a clear understanding of the county that the city intends to continue enforcement of any non-permitted parking in lots H and I, and we have that. As to the maintenance language, I don't have, you can dig out that deed or transfer agreement, but the city is not going to be maintaining those parking lots, Holly. There will be no structural maintenance of that parking lot by the city, the way that that's written.
This is for 22 or 23.
Other discussion? Mr. Stasiak?
It's in there.
Thank you. Rob, I appreciate your comments and you're looking at this. And I have that language in front of me, and for the benefit of council, it says, if the Findlay further agrees that when said premises are no longer used for public regulated paid parking, and it is paid parking, so there's a definition there that I don't understand with regard to 12.5 per year is due on those lots. I think it's $30 per space or something to that effect. It says the grantor herein, its successors and assigns, shall have the option to purchase the property conveyed by the deed from the grantee for the sum of $13,500. And again, as you mentioned, within 60 days after notification by the grantee, its successors are assigned that the said premises are no longer being used for public regulated paid parking. And then it goes on to say a few more other things. Typically, when notice is required, we follow ORC with regard to doing notices. Would it be wise in this case, if it's the intention of the city, to absolve itself from that lot or give this lot to the county, and we will not actually be having paid parking there anymore, whether it's leased or metered? Paid parking's paid parking from the perspective of the fiscal office. Put a public notice in place so we can at least argue, should that family come back later, because it's my understanding the family exists, regardless of whether Mr. Johnson knows where they're at or not. And then we can say, we did a proper notification via the paper or via ORC, and put the public on notice, including those families, prior to moving forward and actually transferring the deed. Would that be a wise thing to do?
Well, I don't want to argue about this.
Well, and I don't want to argue it either. I'm asking.
I just thought I'm trying to provide notice to an entity that doesn't exist and would have no authority to come forward. I did check the House Secretary of State site today and did confirm that in 1986 they did dissolve fully. There's been no new documents filed of any assignment of rights on that I can find. I guess the best thing I can tell you is I don't have any concerns over that right of refusal being out there from 1951. It may have had some plans back in the day, but I don't worry about them now.
Mr. Stasiak.
So just to clarify then, and I think I understand what you're saying, from your view, there are no successors and no assigns because of the way the corporation dissolved? Is that what you're saying?
Correct.
Okay. Thank you. I appreciate the clarification.
Mr. Wobser.
You know, one of the things that this lot has come up quite a bit over the last 8 years because of the Argyle lot. It was always, this property was always in play when somebody was looking at developing the Argyle lot. For the folks that don't remember, that's the big empty space that we have on South Main Street. Do we have any concerns? Does anybody have any concerns with the development of that lot without the ability to use that as a carrot?
Ms. Frishy.
Not sure who he was directing his question to.
Anybody who would like to speak up, Holly?
I guess, going back over when that whole Argyle situation came up, we had the church come forward, which is what started the discussion with regards to the Kirk ownership and first right of refusal, which kind of stopped any of that whole situation from what I remember. But the Argyle lots is not a city-owned lot, I don't believe, a city-owned lot that we are selling. So I don't know that it really has any bearing on dangling a carrot for that. But I my bigger concern would be the church because I thought there was first right of refusal after all of that discussion took place, which is what paused everything, but it's been so long. But that's who brought it forward to us, wanting to make sure they had parking for the church.
Mr. Wobser.
Yeah, I think, Holly, you're right. Remember when we were going through all that, the pastor for the church came several times. Their biggest concern was just parking because the lot line there goes right to the edge of the building, as I remember. So they literally couldn't get in their front door if somebody wanted to build up to the lot line. But no, that's a good point. I don't know. There seems to be enough concern with this that I would like to get a couple of answers. Nothing major, but this is a pretty big move with properties that we're moving, transferring things to the county. I understand the county wants to get this done so they have their people have places to park with the brand new building that they built. But I would like to make a motion to table both ordinance 2522 and 2523 until we can get a couple more answers on this and then pass it from there.
Mr. Feiner, point of clarification on how to do this.
Because I've become aware of certain issues, it wasn't going to be this one, but other ones. Again, we're going back to some Robert's Rules of Order procedures here. Mr. Webster, if we wanted to give this some time to sit, again, it's going to be to postpone to a certain time. It would max out at the next meeting. If you want to use the word table it, that's not appropriate. Not that you did, but it's not appropriate. I'm just kind of educating everybody here as best I can, which would normally be to discuss it later tonight, which isn't what your situation is. So if you want to postpone it and have whatever research or discussions done between now and the next meeting, that could be done by a motion to postpone.
Ms. Frishy.
Law Director Feitner, your new postponing verbiage is not making any sense to me. So our council rules of what we've done in the past is we have tabled things, and we can table them indefinitely if we so choose, or for 1 month or for 2 weeks. I need you to clarify for me and maybe the rest of council if they have this question, what is the difference between postpone and tabling?
Okay. To table something under Robert's Rules of Orders would be when you are going through the agenda and there's an item that you're addressing at the moment in time. If you need to lay that aside because a council person has to leave early or whatever the case may be, or another urgent matter arises for that meeting, you would table that particular discussion to address another urgent matter. And you would have to have that urgent matter set forth on the record of what it is or why we're skipping to it. And in the same meeting, you would come back and untable that whatever you set aside. Table refers to putting it onto the secretary of the meeting's table in the old days is what it refers to. If it doesn't come back in that same meeting, it would have to come back in the next meeting. If it's not on tabled in the next meeting, it dies. To postpone to a certain date is very similar, but allows for you not to bring it back this meeting, and it would be scheduled for unfinished business in the next meeting. I know this is confusing. Robert's Rules of Order takes 400 pages to tell you how to do things, and that's what it says. It's unfortunate. I'm trying to be as accurate as I can for council, because when it comes to big decisions that come back and haunt you, we want a good record.
For the record, I had brought up that I thought we were tabling things incorrectly. I thought I first started bringing that up in 23, maybe in 24, and I still had it butchered. I was only working on my abridged version of Roberts, and also with a change in law director and a change in interpretation. And so Rob and I have talked about this and talked about how we handle the item that we postponed from the last meeting. And he's our law director, and I need to go with his opinions. And so Mr. Wobser, you had your hand up next.
Thank you. Rob, thank you very much for that clarification. And yeah, we have obviously been butchering Robert's poor rules here for a while with tabling, because we were just postponing things according to your definition, which is fine. So with that, I would like to withdraw my motion to table and make a motion to postpone, which I've never done before. I like the sound of it. Postpone this until a further date. I don't have to give a date. Is that Rob? Correct, Rob? Or do I have to give?
It will be the next meeting.
Okay.
That's when it will be.
So we have a motion to postpone. Is there a second? Second, Mr.
Second?
Second, Mr. DeArmond. Is this a discussable motion, or is?
Hold on.
1 second, please.
There is only debate on the motion to postpone and no longer in the main item at hand. So you can have a debate on whether to postpone it, but you can't further debate topics of the deed transfer.
Okay, good.
So a discussion on the motion to postpone, Ms. Frishy.
Rob, you're gonna think I'm beating a dead horse, but I've been on council for 9 years, some of us 10 or more years. It's always been tabling. So we learned something from you, and I appreciate that. But we also don't always follow Robert's rules, and sometimes when we do what works for this council, I guess. or some of council, whatever. My question to you is, how do we loosen those purse strings a little bit in order to give us enough time to have a meeting before we have the next council meeting or before we make a decision, or to get these answers? Do you know what I'm saying? Or I mean, does it come back in 2 weeks and we're saying, hey, postpone again? Because it sounds like we can't do that. But I feel like we have a little bit of a noose around our neck suddenly.
Mr. Feiner.
There is a unique answer, and again, when I get some time, maybe I'll write up a cheat sheet for all this and give it to all of council. In my experience with village councils and my observations of other, bodies that meet, is it's very hard to follow Robert's Rules of Order perfectly. There are people who are paid as parliamentarians to assist big bodies through their procedures when they're very important and they have the money to spend on it. There is a way in Robert's Rules of Order that finds things that you can do to, I guess, go around some of the rules. And one of those, in this situation, you could have a motion, what's called a motion to commit, and you can send it to a committee to look at these deeds and their transfers and what, if anything, they do for the city. And then that would delay it until that committee makes a report and recommendation. So if you want a committee to look at it, you could do a motion to commit, and it would go to a committee. We'd have to figure out tonight who's on that, and then they would study that for council and get those answers.
We are still having a discussion on the motion to postpone to the next meeting. Mr. Wobser.
I think, Rob, again, appreciate your clarifications. I think we have 2 weeks till April 1st, which is our next meeting, I believe. That should be enough time for the mayor or whoever on the administration will come back and get some answers for us. Rob, are you good with that?
Yes, my question was, do we have the specific questions so we don't gather data or information that's not meeting your expectations of information? So are there specific questions that you want us to bring information back for?
And for the sake of moving this meeting forward, if the motion to postpone succeeds, I would request that these questions be emailed to Mr. Martin promptly on Wednesday with a CC to all of council.
Fair enough.
Other discussion on the motion to postpone? Seeing as though there's none, all those in favor of postponing?
I would think voice vote.
All those in favor of the motion to postpone to the next meeting, please say aye.
Aye.
Those opposed, same sign.
Nay.
One nay.
One nay. Ordinance 25-022 is postponed to the next meeting.
Mr. President.
We got a hand over there.
We don't have discussion because
No, I was just point of clarification. I thought the motion was for both 22 and 23.
no, the motion was, we were only considering 25, 22 at this point in time.
However, Mr. President Pro Tem, yes, my motion was for both, just to clarify.
But we only have one on the table.
Understood. Okay, so
We're gonna have to repeat this fun process here shortly. I will call on you, Mr. Wobser.
Third reading for ordinance 2025-23. An ordinance authorizing the mayor to execute the attached deed and related transfer agreement for same as it pertains to the transfer of parcel numbers 600000924740 and 600001008730 to the Board of Hancock County Commissioners.
Mr. Wobser,
I would like to make a motion to postpone.
to the next meeting?
Well, I think that's our only choice.
Okay, thank you. Second, Mr. DeArmond, we have a motion to postpone this ordinance to our next meeting. Discussion. Thankfully, there is none. All in favor of postponing ordinance 2025-023 to the next meeting, please say aye.
Aye.
Those opposed, same sign.
Nay.
And it is postponed.
Third reading for ordinance 2025-25, an ordinance memorializing the expenditure of public funds for fiscal year 2025 for approved public purposes as set forth herein. It's a third reading.
Mr. Palmer.
Move to approve ordinance number 2025-25.
Second, Mr. Baumann. Discussion. Ms. Frishy.
This ordinance, this evening, I will be a no on because, I feel it is inappropriate, giving this blanket policy across the entire city. We became knowledgeable that things were happening, with our city services being used for Findlay City Schools and outside the city limits, with no accountability. And yes, it will give some accountability, but I think anytime there's something that we're considering like this, it needs to come to council, have a specific discussion, just like we're gonna do the load ticket going forward with Findlay City Schools. But I don't think it should be for anything and everything as a blanket of being a good neighbor. For that reason, I'll be a no on that tonight.
Other discussion. Seeing as though there's none, all those in favor of passing ordinance 2025-025, please say aye after your name is called. Those opposed, nay.
Mr. Greeno.
Aye.
Mr. Niemeyer.
Aye.
Mr. Palmer.
Aye.
Mr. Russell.
Aye.
Ms. Warnicki.
Aye.
Mr. Wobser.
Aye.
Mr. Ballman.
Aye.
Mr. DeArmond.
Aye.
And Ms. Frishy.
Nay.
The ordinance is adopted.
Second reading for ordinance 2025-26, an ordinance appropriating funds and declaring an emergency. Second reading for ordinance 2025-27, an ordinance appropriating and transferring funds and declaring an emergency.
Mr. Palmer.
Hey, Jeremy, can the contractor get started sooner if we were to approve this tonight?
Yeah, we talked with them late last week, and if the money's approved, they are looking to start the week of the 24th with mobilization and saw cutting. So if we can approve the money, they will get started earlier.
Jim, we don't have a motion.
I move that council's statutory rules be suspended and this ordinance be given its third reading.
Mr. Niemeyer, second. We have a motion to
Point of
suspend.
order, Mr. President.
Yes, sir.
Could the new director of law opine briefly as to whether or not a contractor being ready to go on time actually qualifies as an emergency under the Ohio statutes?
I don't know that I can right now, Jim. I don't know if I have that answer for you.
We have a motion to suspend. We have a motion to suspend. All those in favor of suspending council statutory rules and giving this ordinance its third reading, please say aye after your name is called. Those opposed, nay.
Mr. Niemeyer.
Aye.
Mr. Palmer.
Aye.
Mr. Russell.
Aye.
Ms. Warnicki.
Aye.
Mr. Wobser.
Aye.
Mr. Ballman.
Aye.
Mr. DeArmond.
Aye.
Ms. Frishy.
Nay.
Mr. Greeno.
Aye.
Council statutory rules have been suspended, and this ordinance will be given its third reading.
Ordinance 2025-27.
Mr. Palmer.
Move for adoption of ordinance number 2025-27.
Second, Ms. Warnicki. Discussion, Mr. Stasiak.
Hey, thank you, and thank you, Rob. I didn't mean to put you on the spot there. However, I've been informed more than once that our practice of passing things on emergency, like insurance proceeds and whatnot, to just expedite the speed of government, don't necessarily qualify as emergencies under Ohio law and allow us to proceed at the pace that we've been doing in terms of waiving readings. And that's not to criticize any one of you. We all love getting things done, and there are times when I need things. You guys have been wonderful about that. However, we do have a new director of law. I do think the question is worth asking because you are in a situation now where your deficit spending significant, and to pause and well consider these things and be in a position to state to the community you've well considered and not passed an emergency legislation that wasn't truly an emergency, I think is valuable and respectful of your community. And that's my advice as your fiscal officer, that you take a pause and you get an answer to that question before moving forward, and maybe consider pausing this until date certain at your next meeting.
With the quick absence of Councilman Baumann, I move that council go into a 5-minute recess or until which time Mr. Baumann returns.
Can we have police or discussions
Second,
going?
second, Mr. Wobser. With Mr. Baumann absent, further discussion doesn't give him the opportunity to participate. We have a motion to go into a 5-minute recess. All in favor of that motion, please say aye.
Aye.
Those opposed, same sign. And we are in a 5-minute recess. This won't be a 5-minute recess. Mr. Baumann has returned. Let's get back to business. Mr. DeArmond, Mr. Wobser, Ms. Frishy. Gentlemen, let's go.
We waited for Brian. We're not waiting for us. Let's get back to work.
Thank you. Council is back in session. We are on ordinance 2025-027. We have suspended rules. And we have had a motion to approve, and it has been seconded, and we are now in discussion. And thank you all for taking the quick recess. Ms. Frishy.
Jeremy, your email that you send out to council in advance of the meetings asking what you're requesting for. So for this ordinance, I've never noticed this wording from you before. It says at this time, funds are being appropriated to cover the concrete contract, providing contingency, and have funds for our street department to start the resurfacing list. And then it says the funds for the asphalt contract will be appropriated at a future council meeting. I don't understand.
Yeah, so we've actually been doing this for quite a few years, where we split up the contracts between asphalt and concrete. Before I came here, what they used to do is have just one that covered asphalt and concrete. Asphalt guys don't want to mess with concrete. Concrete guys don't want to mess with asphalt. So we are pretty much managing both of those as separate projects, so that way we can receive better pricing on that. So what I'm saying with that is right now, asphalt plants are not open, but concrete, I can get concrete curb in, and we can make sure that portion is done. So when asphalt plants are open, we can roll right into asphalt. So at this time, I'm only appropriating enough funds to cover the contract for the concrete portion of it. As soon as I get enough funds, or as soon as the plants are going to be open, then I'll appropriate the rest of the funds for the asphalt portion of the contract. We do that, so then historically, we've been pretty successful of getting all of our streets resurfaced, or majority of them, before school starts. And that's kind of one of the big things, is we want to make sure we can get the bulk of our work done before school buses are back out there. I know we have to deal with them in the spring, but we don't want to deal with spring and fall.
So you just spelled it out differently this time is what it, so what is the total project amount, and then and what was the amount that this second reading that we suspended is appropriating?
So the request was 1.1 million. The contract amount for the concrete was about 855. Asphalt's going to be about 500. But like I stated in my email on that, is we also have street resurfacing of our street department doing that work. So they are using funds out of that as well. So the 1.1 isn't all going towards the contractor. That is also going for our street department to do street resurfacing themselves.
Further discussion? Seeing as though there is none, all those in favor of ordinance 2025-027, Please say aye after your name is called. Those opposed, nay.
Mr. Palmer,
Aye.
Mr. Russell,
Aye.
Ms. Warnicki,
Aye.
Mr. Wobser,
Aye.
Mr. Ballman,
Aye.
Mr. DeArmond,
Aye.
Ms. Frishy,
Aye.
Mr. Greeno,
Aye.
Mr. Niemeyer.
Aye.
The ordinance is adopted.
Second reading for ordinance number 2025-29, and ordinance appropriating and transferring funds and declaring an emergency. One. First reading for ordinance 2025-31, an ordinance authorizing the mayor, service safety director, and/or city engineer of the city of Findlay, Ohio, to advertise for requests for proposals where required and enter into contracts for the Miracle Field Fitness Park, project number 319-50600, appropriating community block grant funds thereto and declaring an emergency.
Mr. Cordonier contacted me and said that it would be appreciated if this could be expedited tonight. Matt, is there, you want to speak to the desire to get this moving? Thank you.
A good night for this request. I am requesting that you waive the 3 readings and pass it on an emergency basis. We are working, first of all, there's no city money involved in this project. It's $250,000 from the Community Development Block Grant Program, which Regional Planning applied for on behalf of the Miracle Field through the City of Findlay. Miracle Field is providing the other $75,000 for the project. Again, there is no City of Findlay money within this project. With grants, we have timelines. With products, we have 8 to 10 month ordering timeframes for those projects to come in. So the sooner we can get it bid out, the sooner the playground equipment can be requested, delivered, installed, and so that we can make the timeline for the grant program. The timeline for the grant program is June of next year, but you know, if we wait a couple more weeks, couple months, then we bid it out, it all starts to get very tight. So that's my request. Thank you.
Thank you. Ms. Warnicki.
I would make a motion to suspend rules on that because the money's not coming from the city, and be good to get that done for the kids and suspend the rules and do the second, third reading.
Second, Mr. Ballman. We have a motion to suspend rules and give ordinance 2025-031 its second and third reading. All in favor of suspension of rules, please say aye after your name is called. Those opposed, nay.
Mr. Russell,
Aye.
Ms. Warnicki,
Aye.
Mr. Wobser,
Aye.
Mr. Ballman,
Aye.
Mr. DeArmond,
Aye.
Ms. Frishy,
Aye.
Mr. Greeno,
Aye.
Mr. Niemeyer,
Aye.
and Mr. Palmer.
Aye.
Council statutory rules have been suspended, and this ordinance will be given its second and third reading.
Ordinance number 2025-31. Ordinance number 2025-31.
Mr. Wobser.
Motion to approve.
Second, Ms. Warnicki. Discussion. Hearing as though there's none. All those in favor of adoption of ordinance 2025-031, please say aye after your name is called. Those opposed, nay.
Ms. Warnicki,
Aye.
Mr. Wobser,
Aye.
Mr. Ballman,
Aye.
Mr. DeArmond,
Aye.
Ms. Frishy,
Aye.
Mr. Greeno,
Aye.
Mr. Niemeyer,
Aye.
Mr. Palmer,
Aye.
and Mr. Russell.
Aye. The ordinance is adopted.
First reading for ordinance number 2025-32, an ordinance authorizing the mayor, service safety director, and/or city engineer of the city of Findlay, Ohio, to advertise for bids where required and enter into contracts for construction of various projects in accordance with the 2025 department equipment list, appropriating and transferring funds for said capital expenditures, and declaring an emergency.
Add-on ordinances.
Ordinance number 2025-33, an ordinance appropriating funds and declaring an emergency. First reading for ordinance 2025-34, an ordinance appropriating funds and declaring an emergency.
Unfinished business.
Third reading for ordinance 2025-16, An ordinance amending chapters 1119 and 1141 and adding new chapter 1152 et sec to be known as the City of Findlay Cannabis Zoning Ordinance, adopting, approving, and incorporating the entire text of the aforementioned amended chapters and new chapter 1152 into the codified ordinances of the City of Findlay, Ohio, repealing section 513.15, prohibiting the sale and or cultivation of cannabis, repealing ordinance number 2024-81 in accordance in accordance to eliminate the current 12-month moratorium established in said ordinance upon the adoption of said new cannabis zoning chapters.
Mr. Wobser.
Make a motion to approve.
Second, Mr. DeArmond. Pardon? And before our discussion. Yes. Okay. So we have public communications on this agenda item. We have a handful for. We have 2 representatives of the retail cannabis industry also in attendance. I think, or we have multiple in opposition, and then 2 from the cannabis industry here to answer any questions. We'll start with the folks who are here in opposition. And as a quick, to let you know about our rules, we do have a running 60-minute clock for public participation, and comments are limited to 4 minutes. Council President Harrington and the law director will be the timekeepers, and I'm going to go with what they tell me. And I will ask the folks that are addressing council tonight to understand that we have an ordinance, a zoning ordinance here, and that the comments should be directed toward the zoning ordinance and not be a commentary on the pros or cons of the 2023 November election that passed the citizens initiative on marijuana retailing. We are here to discuss the zoning ordinance that is before council. And with that, we'll start with Robin Welly.
Just real quick.
Yeah.
Yes,
Pro
sir.
Tem.
So when you come up, make sure the microphone's on. There's a red button that'll light up. When the 4 minutes, at about 3 minutes and 50 seconds, I will raise my hand to let you know that your 4 minutes is just about. Understand at that point in time, you'll probably have to stop. Council always has the option to extend your remarks if they choose. But just kind of look for my hand so you know it's time to wrap it up. Thank you.
So first we have Robin Welly, who lives in Ward 5, and you are.
I'm not against it. I am first, but I'm not against it.
Oh, you are in. Okay, you are in favor.
I'm in favor.
Okay, I'm sorry, Robin. I didn't see it listed
okay.
here.
I just put dispensaries.
Yeah, thank you.
I have pictures that I'm passing out in the audience and up to the council. If you'll pass them around for me. Is it supposed to be red or green? It's red. Okay. Thank you for this time. I'm Robin Welly, 1711 Cary Avenue. Tonight I'm representing myself only, but it's for the medical and recreational users also. It's nice to see a packed house again. I found out a couple years ago, if you want to make a difference, it starts here. I am now a regular, even when our neighborhood is not affected. Last week, the term gateway drug was used repeatedly. It's not a rare thing. Alcohol, tobacco, and even prescription drugs are all gateway drugs. They are all legal. THC is now legal. So deal with it. It's like everything else. If you don't like it, you don't have to use it. But you should not interfere with those that choose to. The stigma of marijuana should not stand in the way of dispensaries in our town. The sick, the elderly, the vets, the dying use marijuana on a regular basis to alleviate their pain. It makes pain bearable so they can manage their daily lives. The benefits and the affordable costs versus prescription drugs help relieve some of their burdens. I passed out the pictures of the dispensaries in Tiffin, Fremont, Marion, and the 2 in BGs. All are plain storefronts, most of them on major thoroughfares. Kroger's, Aldi's, Rural Kings, and even Little Caesars and a Vets Club are their neighbors. They're in shopping plazas, and they blend in well within the city. I've never seen a line waiting outside any of them. The preconceived notion that Stoner Steve is waiting for his next high is not going to be the one using dispensary in Findlay, Ohio. Ohio marijuana costs $192.40 an ounce versus $71.80 an ounce in Michigan, almost 3 times the amount of why patients or their caretakers make the unnerving hour-long drive to Michigan to purchase it. Nobody is just going to casually wander into a dispensary. Even though a minor can wander down the gateway liquor aisles in our store. It is harder to get into a dispensary than it is to get into any municipal building in this town. You show your license, fill out a form, wait in the first waiting room, they buzz you through the door. Then you're escorted through the locked doors into the purchase area. Do you know the sales staff is very well trained? They ask what you're purchasing for and recommend different strains for your ailments. The only difference between medical patients and recreational patients in the dispensary is that the patients don't pay the 10% excise tax that is charged to recreational buyers. Your children are exposed to gateway drugs with the display in grocery stores and carryouts, the neon lights in restaurants, the open containers in our downtown Dora area. Our city park even has allowed wine. Last but not least, in your own home, on your TV. Because THC is not your drug of choice, don't interfere with the majority of people who voted for it. We merely have 4 recommended sites tonight. If ever a dispensary comes into town, first they are going to planning and asking for approval. If you don't like the location, then get involved. If you don't have time for that, then it's really not a priority in your life. Last week at the 3rd and final reading, we have a room full of people who want to circumvent the project, fighting over 1 of 4 locations, a project that has been discussed for over a year. Our paid professionals in planning and zoning departments have worked with a committee on this. They have a plan they think is acceptable. That is what they are paid for. That is what tonight is for. In conclusion, Mr. Harrington, it takes me 20 seconds, sorry guys. I am asking for council tonight not to be deterred. I'm asking to carry on the vote and approve the dispensary area. As for the naysayers back there, let them get involved and follow the process through the proper time. Tonight, council, you're voting for the senior citizens, the veterans, the people with chronic pain, cancer, seizures, Alzheimer's, PSD, and too many others to mention. Last but not least, your vote tonight is so there's easy access to the families and caretakers whose world crashes when the doctor adds palliative or hospice.
Questions
to the
for Ms.
medical
Welly. Thank you. We gave
record.
you, we went to 4:30. Questions for Ms. Welly. Thank you, Robin. And with Robin starting the conversation on those in support of the ordinance, I'm just going to ask that Steve Delich come up and introduce himself. And I know I don't believe you have specific prepared comments, but introduce yourself. And
Hello, Council. My name is Steve Delich. I am the regional manager for a company called Cureleaf, where we operate retail all across the country. My responsibility is the retail sector. I operate in Ohio, Illinois, as well as North Dakota. Prior to cannabis, which I've been in the industry for about 4.5 years, I was in the retail sector for about 20 plus years in both big box and specialty retail. I'm also Ohio native. I'm in Pataskala, which is right outside of the Columbus area. So I have a vested interest in responsible cannabis in the retail sector. I think it would be helpful, since I'm an expert in the industry, I've been in the industry for about 4.5 years, to also, from what Robin said, to explain what the journey looks like from our customer, as well as some security things that we do from a retail perspective. I am not Stoner Steve as well, but what we do is, Robin laid it out pretty well. Our customers, come in the front entrance. It's a very secure building. We've got 24-hour surveillance and cameras both externally as well as internally. A customer will enter into a man trap area. That customer will be greeted by one of our associates. An ID check is performed visually as well as with a token scanner to make sure that they verify age. That is the entrance into the dispensary, where they're again greeted by one of our associates. We take them through the cannabis journey, answer any questions, guide them on the right path, whether they're a patient or recreational use. Again, they go to the transaction, which is in our point of sale area. Another ID check is performed to make sure that it is compliant with state regulations as well as control over minors. Everything is added into the seed to sale system, which is a state regulation, and the transaction is performed and the customer goes along their way. One thing that I think I want to make abundantly clear is, from a security standpoint, we do have obviously a 24-hour surveillance system that obviously is both externally as well as internally. We also, work with law enforcement in other markets that I've been in operation with. If there's something that happens, we're in cooperation with law enforcement to appease anything from the cameras that they might want to pick up. From an economic impact, one of our dispensaries, we operate 2 in Ohio, 1 in Newark and 1 in Cuyahoga Falls. We employ about 6 management positions in terms of leaders, and then about 15 to 25 hourly associates. So all of those positions are sourced locally, so there's a lot of economic growth, a lot of job sourcing within the community. And then in terms of the excise tax, one of our dispensaries has about $1 million in revenue in excise tax. There is a different way. 36% of that does come back to the community in terms of the host community fund. And the rest of it is also divvied up as well. But it's about $1 million in total revenue with the 10% tax. And I'm here to answer any questions from a retail perspective. And
Questions for Mr. Delich? Mr. Wobster, please.
Mr. Delic, thank you for your comments. You brought up an interesting perspective from this I hadn't thought about. Without giving away too much detail, what are you paying your managers and your employees? Ballpark.
Yeah, our store managers earn, our range is between $65,000 and $75,000. Assistant managers are in the range of $55,000 to $65,000. And then we have lead associates that are an hourly associate-based position, but an annual salary of about $40,000 to $50,000.
So they're making what, 18 to 20
I
an hour?
believe it's about $19 to $22 an hour is
Thank
what
you.
we pay our lead associates. Yeah.
Thank you.
Mr. DeArmond?
So can customers consume product while they're on site?
They cannot.
No,
No,
no.
that
No
is a
gummies,
firm,
no-
firm strict state regulation. You must be off
Okay.
property to consume.
Thank you.
That's correct.
Ms. Frishy?
You're here today, Steve. Are you looking at putting a facility inside the city of Findlay, or are you working with anybody to have a chain of Cureleaf in our community?
Yeah, we would like to be a part of the community. I think we've got quite a few licenses in the state of Ohio, and we were looking at Findlay to be coming here as a representative of a very well-known, reputable brand from an MSO perspective to join your community.
Other questions for Mr. Delich? Thank you.
Thank you.
Next, another company representative, Mr. Josh Black.
Thank you, Council, for your time tonight. My name is Josh Black. I'm here on behalf of Columbia Care, Ohio. We operate currently 5 dispensaries within the state and are looking to make Findlay one of our 6th. I am a regional security manager for the company, and just to kind of piggyback off of the gentleman from Cureleaf, the security in these locations are paramount. I mean, we use access control systems, cameras, as he said, exteriorly and internally. They're monitored 24/7. We are a proactive security, and what I mean by proactive, meaning we have call-down speakers on the outside of our buildings where if someone comes on site after hours, our analytic cameras send an alert right to our monitoring hub where they can call down the person, hey, you in the black hoodie, blue jeans, you need to leave the property immediately. So we try and stop any any form of diversion or theft or breaking and enterings before they occur. A little bit about my background. I'm a retired captain for the police department in Brown County, Ohio, about 30 miles east of Cincinnati. I was the commander of the Brown County Drug and Major Crime Task Force approximately a year and a half before I retired. If you would have asked me 10 years ago, I would have probably disagreed with this, but after being involved in this industry, I see the good that this industry does for people, as the lady before me mentioned. You know, people with PTSD, people who are suffering from pain. It gives them an alternative from the opioid. And many of you, probably there's someone in this room that's been affected by the opioid crisis in some way, shape, or form. This is a totally new avenue. No one has ever overdosed from marijuana and died from it. You know, versus out on the streets, you never know what you're going to get. The marijuana that they may purchase illegally may be laced with. They get that and they die of an overdose of fentanyl or whatever the case may be. So I don't have any more to add, but I would be more than happy to answer any questions.
Questions for Mr. Black, Mr. Wobser.
Mr. Black, thank you for your comments. Given your background as a police officer in Brown County, I think that's interesting. My question is, what is the difference, or how much harder or easier would it be for an underage person to purchase cannabis from one of your dispensaries versus going to the local C-store to get a 6-pack of beer?
Oh, it would be, you know, I don't want to say impossible, but it really is. We have, and I believe the gentleman from Curaleaf mentioned this, we have 2 times before they ever, one time before they get in the door, their licenses are checked and verified that that is them, to make sure that they are 21 years of age or older to get in the door. And then once they are in the door, they get checked again before they're brought into the actual floor that they sell the cannabis on.
Ms. Frishy?
Mr. Black, you brought up some good points here that I think, and so you're looking at having a location here just as Steve. How do you feel about it being so close to residential? I mean, there's rules and guidelines set at the state level of how far you have to be from something. Is it just meeting that requirement, or is it being a little more respectful? Because, you know, we talk about alcohol and other things that are easier to be seen and so forth. I can't really get a good description. I mean, we know it's a retail store, but to say that somebody will enter the building and they will go into a holding tank. I mean, and then from the holding tank, we're going to go to here. And then from, you know, I mean, it sounds like we're entering a prison. And to me, that's because the risk of somebody getting in there that we don't want in there, underage in there, misuse and so forth is a concern. So since you're up here and Steve isn't, you're going to get the question of how many years have you been in business and how many issues have you had? Because how many times have you turned on the loudspeaker at night and said, hey, you, the black hoodie and jeans, get off the property, that you wake up the whole neighborhood?
I can, and it's not that loud of a speaker. It's just enough that if someone's right there, they're going to hear it. Typically, our locations are put in strip malls or a new build wherever zoning allows for that type of establishment. It's not in the state of Ohio, maybe a handful of times where we've had call downs, but it typically does not affect anyone next to them because they're always in a commercial environment.
And then how many square feet are your buildings?
Oh,
is it a warehouse?
No. They're small. They're commercial space for like retail sales. I don't want to tell you something that's not right, but I would say 12 to 1,800 square feet potentially.
And you have that many employees with holding tanks and moving from station to station without leaving with any extra in your pocket.
So typically it's a one-on-one transaction. It's one sales agent to one customer or patient. So yes, they bring them in to the sales floor. They take them to the point of sale, ask them what they're there for. As the lady before said, most of the retail agents in these dispensaries are very good at what they do. If you're looking for something for pain, they can kind of guide you in a certain direction. If you're looking for something for PTSD, they can guide you in another direction. So,
Mr. Baumann,
Mike,
questions answered? Thank you. Other questions for Mr. Black? Thank you, sir.
thank you.
Next, we have Brenda Frankhart. She I do not believe Ms. Frankhart lives in the city, so I don't know what word to say, so, nope. Ms. Frankhart?
Thank you. As stated in my letter and packet that was sent to all of you, those of us in Western Meadows, Liberty Benton, and Hancock County are just as invested in the city of Findlay as all of you. I have lived here for 26 years, and we love and support the Flag City. We want to see the very best for everyone here in Findlay and Hancock County. It's all about teamwork and being good neighbors to one another, and not every community has that. In the packets that I provided, I gave you maps and photos. I'm welcome to answer any questions that you have about that. I know from working with people in Findlay over 26 years, oftentimes people don't venture out over the highway to know that our neighborhoods in Liberty Benton is right there over the highway. We respectfully request that you vote to dismiss the currently proposed cannabis dispensary map overlays and instead revisit this possibility at a different time with improved locations, if at all. There are many reasons to slow down on this very controversial matter and further investigate all angles before approving it too quickly. Once you open this door, it is nearly impossible to go back and change the course in the future. This is a very serious decision. Thank you for giving it your most detailed attention. There are major increases in cannabis poisonings in children, whether accidentally or intentionally, when they have this available in their proximity at home and in school settings. Our ER and hospital is already full on a regular basis, and I hope that you have seriously looked at the research as what is happening right now in real time in other states who have already encountered this. Why do you want to follow in those footsteps? I hope you've read the article that I gave you from May 2024, a very recent article that is happening in Detroit. Detroit has big schools, kind of like the size of Findlay High School. So I encourage you to read that very closely with all that they are dealing with. And it also talked about the very frequent cannabis poisonings that are happening to the kids that are so young they're not even in school yet. Have you ever walked through a store and been grossed out with someone's inconsiderate use of pot nearby? My last visit to Kohl's. Have you ever driven across town and smelled a house that completely reeks of the pot smell and you smelled it with your car windows all the way up? Have you ever gone to a public event only to have someone come sit 2 rows in front of you and they reek like pot? These kinds of issues are already occurring now, and that is without a local dispensary. Most people can understand and support the possibility of medical marijuana, just as Mayor Murin so passionately supports. However, the issue of approving cannabis dispensaries for our Findlay, Hancock County community is not about medical marijuana. The issue you are close to approving is recreational. And in Ohio, legal residents can already grow their own. That is their right. There will be towns that will have dispensaries for recreational use, and there will be towns that do not. It is not a requirement for us to have dispensaries. Findlay, Ohio, and the greater Hancock County community has always been a clean, family-focused, well-respected business community until now. Are you seriously willing to impact that forever? As a Liberty Benton High School principal and district administrator for 26 years, I've been in frequent communication with local businesses and employers and raised the bar. And all I have heard for several years is that local employers are desperate for workers. They are seeking warm bodies who will actually show up for work and be able to pass a drug test. all of this has been a constant concern, even without putting a dispensary here. The other people, I timed them and they went over.
I know, I'm allowing you to wrap up.
Okay.
Thank you.
Our concerns are not overblown, as was stated at the last meeting. They are serious and valid concerns. We plead for you to slow down, learn from our Michigan neighbors to the north, and reconsider the impact local cannabis dispensaries will have on our adult workers, in our family homes, and the accidental or purposeful use by our local children, and to the awful smell that will overtake our Flag City sidewalks and neighborhoods. Cannabis can be legal in Ohio without needing to put dispensaries here locally. It is okay to slow down and take a look at this with more details first.
Thank you. Mr. Wobser.
No, I was just going to give her more time if she needed it. So.
Thank
Okay.
you.
Thank you. Questions for Ms. Frankhart? Ms. Frishy.
More time to finish. Do we need to vote on that now?
No, I have a little more.
I'm sorry. My apologies. I thought you were done. I will make a motion to give her another minute.
I wanted to thank our members who serve on Findlay City Council, as well as the many roles that you serve in our Findlay and Hancock County community. Together, you represent our community values, beliefs, and organizations. With all these organizations that you represent, how do you propose to explain to our children that you are voting to bring cannabis dispensaries here that they will see? How do you explain to children that this is important and appropriate? Do you encourage Findlay and Hancock County children and their parents to become cannabis customers? How do you vote for this and explain it to your own children and grandchildren? I would love to know your responses to this, because I have not yet found the words to explain this to our school children, and I hope that we won't have to.
Ms. Frankhart, thank you. Questions for Ms. Frankhart? Thank you very much. Next up is, and Lisa, I'm going to butcher your last name, Lisa Lohman? Logman. Thank you. Lisa is, once again, not a ward resident, I believe, another Liberty Township resident.
Yes.
Thank you.
Yes, I'm just concerned for the welfare of our neighborhood. I live in Western Meadows, which is where the proposed dispensary is going to be located. And so I'm just concerned for the overall welfare of our neighborhood, and based on the concerns that Brenda previously expressed. This dispensary location will be located somewhere or in the proximity of close to where our children get on the bus in the neighborhood. So I'm concerned for the children to be exposed to that. And I just want you to consider and rethink and relook at what's going on in our neighboring state of Michigan, of how the dispensaries have affected that state, and carefully review all the good and the bad that can come along with having a dispensary in the Findlay area.
Questions for Ms. Logman? Thank you.
Thank you.
Bruce Otley. Mr. Otley, thank you.
Members of the council, thank you for this opportunity to respectfully speak in opposition to the locations, in fact, to any of the dispensaries in our beloved city. When I was a government teacher and an American history teacher back in the 1920s, I used to tell my students two things about the United States. One, in a republic where the freest people on the planet live, always remember this: discretion is the better part of valor. In other words, just because you can do something doesn't mean that you always should. With great freedom comes great responsibility. Choose wisely. And the second thing that I used to teach them all year long was every decision in the free world is made by answering the question, at what cost? Elections, economic decisions, lasting peace, and all the world's great problems and solutions are defined by that very question. The mission statement for the city of Findlay is enduring stewardship dedicated to service and safety for citizens, promoting Findlay as the premier place for opportunity and growth. I don't believe that the addition of marijuana dispensaries promoting the sale and consumption of marijuana advance the mission of service, safety, or growth for our citizens. Findlay is proud to be a top micropolitan city and is named as such and has been named as such for the last 10 consecutive years. Families want to live, work, and grow here because the culture that those responsible for leading our city have carefully cultivated. But our city will take a family-friendly feel with pot being peddled and consumed. I speak to many business officials in my capacity as superintendent, and they come from all walks of life in different positions. And a common concern that they do have is, one, finding skilled labor to fill the jobs that we currently have, and also finding a labor force that can also pass a drug test. As an educator with 30 years in the field and 23 in administration, I can say that nothing good can come for kids and families by allowing dispensaries in our community. As superintendent of Liberty Benton Local Schools, I don't want to see a pot dispensary a mere 1.3 miles from the doorsteps of our children at school and right across the street from the residents of the Western Meadows community and those living along State Route 12. I'm also concerned with the types of folks that will be coming in off the I-75 corridor. We do know for a fact that marijuana is a gateway drug and leads to other drug use. Kids get drugs from the home. They get drugs from their families. They get drugs from their older siblings. And we know that increased access in our community will increase the probability of young people using drugs at an earlier age. 1 in 6 kids below the age of 18 do develop a pot addiction if they begin experimenting before the age of 18. That's a medical fact. And the levels of THC in modern marijuana products are much higher than they were even 10 years ago. Like vapes, many pot products target youth with flavorful ways of enjoying them, with packaging, with THC-infused gummies, candies, gums, etc. And these are the items that Mrs. Frankert was speaking of that often cause overdoses, which do occur in young people. I want to remind the council that 53% of the voters in Hancock County voted against the legalization of marijuana in Ohio, and the fact that 52% of the residents of Findlay voted in favor of it is hardly a mandate to allow pot dispensaries into our city. City council members should remember that folks who happen to live outside of the city limits do workshop and invest in Findlay and call Findlay their home too. Council members, just because you can doesn't mean that you should. You don't have a mandate from the voters to allow pot dispensaries in Findlay, and that's an important decision. I'm sure that the potential revenue that this could generate will be alluring to you. I'm wrapping up here. But at what cost? Higher crime, increased addiction, lower productivity, lower home values, and the decline of the moral compass of our community. You are elected to make an important decision tonight. Remember, discretion is the better part of valor. It's up to you to do the right thing. And that pause that we had in our last meeting, I believe, was your conscience speaking to you. You had the opportunity to vote on this at the last meeting, and you didn't table it. You postponed it. So it's up to you to do the right thing. Say yes to strong communities. Say yes to family values. Say yes to low crime rates and safety and health and security for our kids. And for goodness sake, say yes for our children.
Thank you, Mr. Otley.
And
We've got
say
to wrap it
no
up.
to the ordinance for the marijuana dispensary.
Thank you, Mr. Otley. Questions for Mr. Otley? Mr. Wobser.
Mr. Otley, thank you for your comments, and I think I agree with a lot of them. You said you were a government teacher at one point?
Yeah.
Awesome. So my concern with this is you say that there was not a mandate in the city of Findlay.
That's right.
2 percentage or 4 percentage point difference, correct?
Yeah.
What was the percentage point that elected our president?
Off the top of my
2%.
head, I don't know.
2% difference that elected Donald Trump to office.
Yeah.
So it still counts. And regardless, that's the thing I struggle with here. The city of Findlay, I understand, is in Hancock County. All the county townships voted it down. They put a moratorium on them, so they followed their voters. City of Findlay, however, voted it in, as did a large majority of the state when they voted this in. So that is my overall concern. So what would you tell your students for a government official who votes against the will of the people?
I would say you're not voting against the will of the people.
So 52% of the
Because
people?
Because, let me finish. Yes, sir. Because what the voters in the state of Ohio approved was legalized marijuana in the state. It's up to each locality, which is your decision, to allow its distribution through a dispensary. 52% of the vote is not a mandate, and I don't think it's a fair assumption to say that you're equating the presidential election with a mandate. You're putting words in my mouth.
Okay. My apologies.
And that isn't true.
But
I would say a mandate would be a landslide victory of like 80% confidence. Research shows a confidence band that's statistically valid is 80%.
When was the last time anything passed in this state with 80% approval?
I don't know, but I could come back to you as a government teacher and tell you at the next
That's
meeting.
okay. I appreciate
Ms.
you.
Frishy.
So I appreciate you as well, Mr. Otley. I think you made very valid points. I think Councilman Whoopser, his comparisons. I think here's what I believe. I believe in 2023, the state of Ohio voted and they passed the legalization of recreational marijuana. And the city of Findlay residents were in favor of it by a small percentage compared to the entire 60 precincts, townships, everything in Hancock County. Not a big enough difference to make the decision. Nobody is saying, and I hope you're not saying, that if somebody chooses to use marijuana recreationally or to grow their plants in their home, that you could accept that because we passed that legislation with a vote to legalize recreational. We already had medical, right? I, for one, am not into recreational. I'm not into it for my kids. I've seen a lot of things that have happened in the schools. I think our planning and zoning committee, when they made their overlay district, they know it, they see it, they feel it, because we did not want it by Findlay High School. We chose to put it on the other side of 75. Was that the right decision? We'll see tonight, but if we value our students in Findlay City Schools, I believe we need to value your students the same way. None of this is saying that somebody cannot use recreational marijuana. We don't allow recreational marijuana to be used outside your home. You cannot.
Ms. Frishy,
go
is
to
there a question?
restaurant.
Is there a question here for Mr. Otley?
Well, I'm having a discussion and a question for him, and I'll get to it because I
Doesn't
appreciated
sound like
you.
a discussion,
Well,
but
you
appreciate
let
it.
an interrogation from Councilman Whoopser to give a comparison, so
Yes,
I'll
but
just
he did it in
finish mine.
shorter amount of time.
Well, that's okay. I have plenty of time, and I'm sure you do too, because this is a very important
There's two
thing.
others who need to speak.
Okay,
and,
well,
and
if you
this
stop
counts, this
talking,
counts
point
in the,
of order,
this
and let me
counts in the rolling
finish.
60 minutes. I
And
know
let
I
me
won't stop you.
finish this. If, for what you believe of property values, safety of children, introducing it, I think are all fair and valid. I think we need to validate that we respect the vote to use it recreationally, because these are two separate things, and I believe that's what the voters first focused on. And so would you agree to that if somebody was using it recreationally and not going to a store that's within your, we don't have a store there, you can accept that, deal with that as a principal, deal with that as a father, deal with that as a property owner, because you're not getting that traffic.
Well, we already have that as the law in the state of Ohio. What Findlay needs to decide tonight is whether or not to allow dispensaries to operate
Correct.
within the city. And those are two separate issues. So
I think they're mixed.
Every Ohioan has the rights under the law, and I respect the law. But the council doesn't have to vote today to approve dispensaries in our city.
And that's the fact.
Yeah, and so that's a separate issue, and I don't support the dispensaries. So I
Okay.
support the law.
But
I
you
don't-
understand, I mean, when we're mixing things together on a vote, I think the public was looking at it as two things, and the main priority was the first bullet point on that legislation. So I appreciate that you understand the difference on that. I'm hopeful tonight that we will not jeopardize our community at any cost to increase safety concerns when we have a shortage of police staffing and security in our community, and our kids should be number one. So, thank you.
Mr. Ballman,
I'm good.
other questions for Mr. Otley? Thank you, Mr. Otley.
Thank you.
Next up is Mike Osborne, who is not a resident of the city of Findlay. Mr. Osborne.
Good evening. Thank you for letting me speak, council. A lot of you know me here, some don't, and I know some of you that don't know me. 62 years in Findlay, I've been living. I have properties in Findlay. I have properties in Liberty Benton area, Liberty Township. And I want to start by saying about the speakers that came up first about the investors in dispensaries in Ohio and around. All we heard from them was about security, on how to get into the building. If you got an ID and you're 18, you can go in that building, okay? It's what comes out of that building and where the product goes. I can debunk the ex-sheriff, I think it was a sheriff, you were, sheriff? I can debunk that in 5 minutes. I can go in there and get that, and I can sell it to a 15-year-old. And you can't stop me. I have 4 children. One of them's a bartender. He sees it all the time. He smells it all the time. He's with it. My other son's a pastor out of the churches in Toledo area. He couldn't believe it. 16, 18 years at Liberty Benton High School, he couldn't believe something that close like that was going to be that close to the kids. And now I also have a 15-year-old in school. He's got to drive by that every day, 3 or 4 times a day. I've also heard that you don't smell dispensaries when you go by them. I smell them every time I go by them. People come out of there smelling. They go in their car, which smells. You can smell it in front of you. It floats in the air. I eat around that place. I have businesses that I go to around that place. I'll have to reconsider doing that. I can't take my child down there. So I am for what I think Ms. Robin? Yes. For the medical part of that, but the people that she was speaking of obviously is already getting the product to help them. And if they want easier access to that product, then go to your state representatives to be able to try to get that in a different way other than dispensaries being dominoed through the different cities in Ohio. I also want to point out that I've done some research on dispensaries. The pictures that were shown tonight by one of them on the paperwork were more mall front, very clean looking. But I found in research that a lot of the majority of ones are not that way. They're usually put out outside the city limit, or I'm sorry, right inside the city limit, just on the borders of townships. The outsides of their buildings are not upkeep. You find shrubbery, it looks great with the first few years. You find shrubbery, you find landscaping not looking good, concrete, driveways breaking apart. The
Mike-
investors, I believe,
Mike, we're at
excuse
time.
me.
Thank you.
Okay. The investors, to sum up, the investors, I think, look out for themselves to get the money, but don't pay for upkeep and their employees to keep it going. So, if there's any questions?
Thank you, Mr. Osborne. Questions for Mr. Osborne?
Thank you, Council.
Thank you. Our last speaker tonight is Jamie Cunningham. Once again, I believe a non-city resident. Thank you.
In here, 208. Jamie Cunningham. And I, too, own properties with my husband in Hancock County. But before I start, I want to give a commendation to the street department because one of our properties had some road work that needed done at the adjacent driveway. And we had hired a contractor to do it. And when he went to do the work, he was told no, that he could not, that the city would take care of it. And he says, well, it's tearing up cars, it needs to be done. When can we expect this? He was told that day. And I must say, it happened that day. So thank you.
Thank you.
Yes. So what happened to just say no? What you permit, you promote. It is regrettable that we have people, or that we, the people, have an administration and council representatives permitting and therefore promoting recreational marijuana. Voting in favor of establishing a business of this caliber in a conspicuous location, despite its appeal for convenience and compliance with state and federal regulations, is at the very least self-serving. It doesn't appear that ruminated, contemplative thought processes have gone into mitigating what likely could be unforeseen consequences. This at the expense of our youth, who already are at an unprecedented risk given their exposure to unrelenting media in every platform. For example, pornography as early as the age of 5. How? It's accessible in the safe haven of our libraries in public schools, and in some cases, overtly propagated. Additionally, the multi-billion-dollar industry of sex trafficking by predators for profit, the very predators that will in all likelihood frequent this establishment. And who knows, set up an operation in close proximity to a larger number of school-age children. The dangers are innumerable. I learned as a young person in health education that marijuana is a gateway drug. That fact has not changed. Why, I ask, would responsible adults, only you know if you qualify, want to influence our youth by conditioning them continually as they witness this establishment, promoting, because it's being permitted, a gateway drug? Our youth are valuable, and they should have a village of advocates. I implore you to think of a child. I had my granddaughter here earlier. As you enter into this decision to vote in favor or of moving forward or against and spending the necessary time to carefully navigate as many pitfalls as would be conceivable. I see no drawback in taking the time to make this decision wisely. And I appreciate Mr. Stasiak's comment earlier about these motions to suspend rules in the essence of expedition. I've consistently come to these meetings and watched the process where a motion is made to suspend the rules to expedite a second and third reading for a proposal for time's sake. But with prudent foresight planning, you could have your third reading within 4 weeks from initial first reading, given the fact that you meet twice a month. That is ample time to plan and strategize the needs of this community. Say nope to dope.
Questions for Ms. Cunningham? Thank you. That is all the public comment, and it is now discussion for council. As I was not at the last meeting, I'd like to make my comments at this point in time. In November 2023, 52.9% of city residents voted in favor of recreational marijuana. That is 22 of 32 precincts, or 69% of them, 6 of 7 wards. The vote difference was 693 votes, and in fact, you could take the no votes, add 10% of it, and it still would have been less than the votes in favor. I personally voted no, but the citizens of Ohio voted yes, and the citizens of Findlay voted yes. And now, despite me not liking the outcome of the election, marijuana is a legal product in Ohio, in Hancock County, and in Findlay. Just like alcohol, just like chewing gum, it is a legal product. If the vote had been different in Findlay, if the majority had said no, I don't believe we would be here. I believe City Council would have passed a permanent moratorium on marijuana sales in Findlay, and we would have been done with it. But that is not what happened. 52.9%, 53% said yes, and here we are. So now this is a zoning issue. And this ordinance, I believe, it guides retail stores into specific parts of the city that are zoned C2. And C2 is where the vast majority of our retail establishments exist. What this proposal does is make a subset of that C2 zoning available for marijuana dispensaries or retail establishments. This is an important point. It makes these stores a conditional use, which forces them to go through our city planning commission process for further scrutiny. And it gives the city the ability to revoke the conditional use permit if the establishment proves to be a poor corporate citizen or and not living up to the promises made through the zoning process. And also, this ordinance limits the total number of stores to a maximum of 2 in the city of Findlay. In addition, any store must meet the state mandated requirements concerning advertising, security, access to the store layout, banning consumption on the premises, etc. And in fact, I think most of what you heard about the security arrangements that the 2 gentlemen talked about are state mandates. We don't trump the state. Our ordinances, or our proposed zoning ordinance, works in conjunction with it. In short, this ordinance provides us, the city of Findlay, maximum control while still being true to the majority of Findlay voters. I was asked what happens if we do not pass this ordinance. Well, the current moratorium will expire on August 3rd. Once it expires, marijuana stores, like any other retail establishment, will be able to establish anywhere our current zoning allows retail, including all of the areas in the current legislation, and that includes the areas east or west of on State Route 12, and the areas west of I-75 on State Route 12, the areas east of I-75 on Trenton Avenue, downtown, and the west side of Manor Hill. And I bring up Manor Hill because Manor Hill was the example of why we turned to overlay districts. The east side is residential, the west side is C2, and the only way we could reasonably protect the residents on the east side, separated simply by a 2-lane road, was an overlay. These stores will be able to be established anywhere in our current zoning except where prohibited by state law. 500 feet, not 1.3 miles from schools, parks, daycares, churches, libraries. I think I got them all. These stores will not be required to go through the conditional use process, therefore will not have a conditional use zoning, therefore the city will not have the ability to reconsider their conditional use permit. There will also be no limit on the number of stores in Findlay other than those based by the state, which is really the distance between two stores. In short, if we do not pass this ordinance, we will lose all the benefits afforded by this zoning amendment. When the citizens of this state and this city passed the statewide initiative making marijuana legal, they created an opportunity for Findlay City Council to address the issue using the best tool we have available, and that is zoning. This ordinance deserves a support and passage. To vote otherwise, I believe, takes away the most effective tool, the most effective manner we have locally in managing these retail establishments. Therefore, I will be voting in support of the ordinance. Ms. Frischie.
Wow, Grant, I think you wanted to outdo me on talking there. Phew, I hope somebody was keeping time. I guess I want to say to you, I think you're putting a fear factor out there and being quite dramatic to say that if we don't pass this tonight, we have no option. First of all, I'm sure we can put another moratorium in place if we can't get this figured out by August. And if not, maybe we should just let the moratorium go and let everything go. And if everybody in the city of Findlay voted for it, let's just open the gates, because you support your wife on Findlay City Schools, not putting it by Findlay High School. But you want to talk and sit here and use a tactic to say that we have no option after this. And we most definitely have an option.
Other comments? Mr. Niemeyer.
Well, a lot of us weren't here, but about 35 years ago, there was a lot of conversation about an adult bookstore going on Trenton Avenue. Yes, no, a lot of conversation. I don't think it ever went to city council, and none of us were on city council, and the adult bookstore is still there. So I just think, and our buffer's not 500, it's 1,000 or 1,500 feet, right?
Is that a question to me, Jim?
Yeah, or Matt's here, or I'm on that committee, but I'm not sure exactly if we moved it from 500 to 1,000 or 1,500.
We looked at that buffers, doing the buffers around the, expanding the state mandated buffers from 500 to 1,000 to 1,500. But we went instead to do the overlay district, which provided us a finer ability to draw the lines. But I believe it was based on a 1,000-foot buffer from those properties. Yes.
Right, and that's more than what the state says. And I hear good and bad. I have for a year. We've been kicking this can down the street. I remember back in high school in Findlay, if we wanted a beer, by golly, that older person would buy us a beer or go to the carryout. Back, we could buy beer when we were age 18, low beer. But I think if somebody wants something, they're going to get it. Thank you.
Other discussion? Seeing that there is none, all those in favor of passage or adoption of ordinance 2025-016, please say aye after your name is called. Those opposed, nay.
Sorry, I gotta find out where I'm at. Mr. Wobser?
Aye.
Mr. Ballman?
Aye.
Mr. DeArmond?
Aye.
Ms. Frischie?
Nay.
Mr. Greeno?
Nay.
Mr. Niemeyer?
Aye.
Mr. Palmer?
Aye.
Mr. Russell?
Aye.
And Ms. Warnicki?
Aye.
2 nay.
The ordinance is adopted. Old business. Old business, Ms. Frischie.
I just wanted to bring up, we've been having a lot of absentees on city council, and we don't ever really give a reason. I don't know if we need to readdress that so we know when people are out of state or if they are doing other business or just spending the day outside, because we need to make sure we have the best attendance we can. And I think it should be spelled out better in our council rules. So I think that should be addressed. I would make that motion if anybody's interested.
Other old business. New business. Mr. DeArmond.
I would like to make a motion to schedule a committee of the whole meeting to discuss our investments. I'm requesting a presentation by our portfolio manager. Specifically, I would like to learn more about return on investment for the last 3 years, 22, 23, 24, by line item and total ROI. A forecast of the return on investment for 2025 by line item and total ROI. A comparison of how our investment returns compared to other public fund accounts and the Consumer Price Index. A general discussion on the types of investments allowed by the Ohio Revised Code. A general discussion on the investment strategy for each of the 3 types of funds in the portfolio. A general discussion on the administration's cash flow projections and how that relates to each type of fund in the portfolio. So the goal of the presentation is just full transparency to City Council and the taxpayers of how their tax dollars are being invested. I just look forward to learn more about our investments and like to schedule that in the next 60 days.
Mr. DeArmond, you asked for a committee of the whole.
Yes.
Previous conversations tonight talked about that being an appropriations committee. I want to confirm you want to.
Is that-
I want to confirm which type of meeting you would like to have.
I was thinking committee of the whole, but I'm open to appropriations. I don't know.
Anybody can attend. Anybody can attend an appropriations meeting, up to the council or the appropriations committee chair, whether the non-members can ask questions during that. I got a feeling he would let us, but per previous conversation, it sounds like this would be
I'll amend that to appropriate the appropriations meeting.
Thank you.
Okay.
There's a request for a meeting. Mr. Palmer. Second. Mr. Stasiak.
I appreciate the request for information. Have every intent on being fully transparent. I will not be preparing a formal presentation. I will come and make myself available for questions. I will get the information as required to make sure transparency is followed, answer all the questions and bring the data that I can. But I'm not going to stand in front of the room and put on a dog and pony show for political reasons. I will come and do the proper responses as necessary, fill my fiduciary obligation, and that is that. So I will make myself available. I will answer questions, but I will not prepare a dog and pony show type presentation. Thank you.
Mr. Wobser, do you need any more than 2 people requesting the meeting, or would you like a voice vote on this? Ma'am, pardon me, could we stop the conversation? Could we stop the conversation in the, thank you.
Yes, actually, let's just take a voice vote, see if we have a
So we have a
majority
we have
would
a
want to do
request
this.
for to call a appropriations meeting, and it has been seconded. All in favor of that request, please say aye.
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 Those opposed, same sign.
Aye.
Aye.
So, yeah, so 2. So is that enough, Jeff, to?
It's fine with me. We'll work on finding a date.
All right. Thank you, Jeff. Other new business.
I'm sorry, Mr.
Oh,
President.
Yes, sir.
Will you forward me your long laundry list of requests?
Sure. Yes.
Thank you. Other new business. Mr. Ballman.
Just want to make a quick announcement. Generally speaking, this is for the month of April. We would meet on the 10th for the Planning and Zoning Committee meeting. However, City Planning Commission has been delayed a week, and typically we would like to meet on the day that City Planning Commission meets, so we have postponed that meeting to April 17th. That's it.
Thank you. And water and sewer. This was previously, or this was called and I think announced on Monday, but water and sewer will be meeting tomorrow at 5 o'clock. up in the third floor conference room, and that also will be streamed. Other new business, Ms. Frishy.
It was actually under old, it's for Rob. The legislation that passed tonight on cannabis, does that have a 30-day on it in order if somebody wants to do a referendum?
It does, as all zoning does.
Thank you, Rob.
It does.
Oh, I thought you were saying, I'm sorry, I got the two Robs mixed up. I apologize, Rob Feiner. Other new business. Seeing as though there is none, is there a motion to adjourn? Mr. Palmer, excuse me, second, Mr. Ballman. All in favor of adjournment, please say aye.
Aye.
And we are adjourned.